how's it going? I decided to make this video in response to the constant barrage of hate I see online when people decide to hand harvest an octopus while breath hold freediving. I see keyboard warriors at home sitting on their high horse because they decide to buy their seafood from the grocery store and not go into the ocean and harvest it themselves. So I'm going to point out a few facts, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I have friends in the commercial fishing industry. I have nothing against them. They're out there doing their thing. I see them all the time though, catching octopus in their crab and prawn traps. Those octopus are then consumed on board, sold on market, used as halibut bait, or sold to bait shops as halibut bait. The bycatch rates for giant Pacific octopus are measured in tons. Not pounds, but tons. Tons are pulled out of the ocean yearly in commercial prawn and crab traps. So if you're giving someone grief about hand harvesting an octopus, but you consume prawns and crab, you're more of a problem than that person selectively going down there into the ocean and sourcing their own protein. And what's even worse is these commercial crab and prawn traps will then entangle whales off our coast, causing extremely painful injuries to these whales, and they often drown as a result when they're unable to surface. The other issue on top of that is all the ghost gear. Every time one of those crab or prawn traps is lost, that's more plastic that's entering our marine environments. And I know this firsthand. I find lost fishing gear left, right, and center on my dives, submersed under the water, or also on the shoreline. If you're ever on the shoreline on the west coast of Vancouver Island, you'll see fish floats left, right, and center, often attached to long strings of lines made from petroleum products, all plastic. I don't consume store-bought seafood for that reason. I don't want to support an industry that causes so much damage to our environments. What I do though is go into the ocean and selectively and sustainably harvest my own protein. I don't eat meat, which includes cows, pigs, and chickens. Only seafood that I catch myself. Ironically, a lot of the people out there giving people grief for harvesting octopus don't seem to practice what they preach. They have no issues going to the grocery store and buying steak, buying chicken, buying pork, or buying seafood. One of the biggest arguments I see when people are harvesting octopus is, hey, don't you know they're sentient? But you know what else is sentient? Pigs, chickens, cows, lab rats. No one seems to care about lab rats. Everything under the sun and moon has been done to a lab rat, but they're incredibly intelligent and honestly a little bit cute if you can get past their griminess. Everyone's like, hey, haven't you seen my octopus teacher? And I have. It was a good dramatic reenactment of a guy following around an octopus. But I've also seen bait. I've also seen Charlotte's Web. I think a major difference is when people go into the ocean and grab an octopus from their environment, the octopus has a fighting chance. And the octopus was living wild and free in its environment until the day it perishes. You can't say the same thing when you buy steak in a grocery store. You have no idea the conditions that cow lived in, that pig lived in, or that chicken lived in. I've never been to a slaughterhouse and I don't plan on it, but I have seen some of those images and they're horrific, they're horrifying. The conditions those animals live in. They're suffering, they're in pain, and they're also contributing to greenhouse gases, which ultimately raises the ocean temperature, which destroys the habitat of octopus. But people don't think about that, do they? They just see someone harvest an octopus and point out, hey, you're bad because you're not buying your food from the grocery store like I am. I've had some of my viewers all excited when I'm out there spearfishing rockfish, but as soon as I harvest an octopus, they flip the script and get all angry and frustrated with me. Octopus have a lifespan of about 3 to 5 years, as where some of the rockfish in our ocean can live up to 175 years. Octopus complete their life cycle in about 3 to 5 years, and they're of least concern on the conservation status. Some of the rockfish that I harvest don't mature until about 15 years. And as you may know, rockfish are very susceptible to overfishing due to their swim bladder that expands when they're brought up from depth. Causes barotrauma, they're unable to descend, they get picked off by birds, and the barotrauma itself often leads to fatal injuries. From a conservation status, octopus are a smarter choice than rockfish. I also want to point out, since 2018, I've only harvested by hand 7 octopus, as opposed to the countless rockfish and lingcod I've brought home. Octopus are amazing creatures, they're extremely clever. Half the time when I see them, they're deep inside a rock, and there's no chance in hell I'll be able to get one out. If I do see an octopus in the open, I may decide to harvest it, but it's really circumstantial depending on how I'm feeling. Sometimes having one of those interactions with an octopus is just as valuable as bringing home a sustainable meal. What I don't do though is go to popular scuba spots like Madrona Point and Oak Leaf and the Neuse Bay and harvest up a storm, because I know those octopus are very valuable to the freediving and scuba diving community. So I'm very circumstantial when I decide to grab an octopus, but I feel like if I'm preaching sustainability, it'd be hypocritical not to harvest an octopus when I'm out there blasting rockfish left, right, and center. One of the keys to sustainable harvesting is spreading out your pressure to a wide area, not hitting the same spot time after time, and also spreading that pressure out to a wide variety of species. Fish, sea cucumber, urchin, bivalves, and yes, octopus. Now, I don't really expect to change anybody's opinion with this video, but I do want to provide a bit of insight. This whole "you're a monster because you're harvesting octopus" reminds me of vegans who are forcing their agenda down people's throat, and nobody likes that, do they? Now, I have mad respect for vegans. I feel like they're the only ones that have merit when they come after me for harvesting from the ocean. But let's not forget, vegan diets can be very detrimental to planet Earth as well. Unless you're buying organically grown local fruits and vegetables, shipping your avocado from Chile on a freighter to British Columbia isn't necessarily good for the environment. In fact, jumping into the ocean and harvesting your own seafood can be looked at as a more sustainable option than a vegan diet, depending on the circumstances. I guess the moral of the story is you do you and I'll do me. I'm not going to be going to the grocery store, hounding people for purchasing seafood, steak, etc. But I don't think it's fair that people hound me for going into the ocean and making my choices, which I believe to be much more sustainable than your everyday diet that's consumed in North America. So next time you guys are surfing the internet and a video of somebody harvesting an octopus pops up, maybe, just maybe, don't click it. Or if you do, try to reflect on your own habits and ask, hey, what's worse? Purchasing food from a grocery store where I have no idea where it came from or the conditions those animals lived in, or going into the ocean and harvesting it yourself. At the end of the day, there's no one that cares more about the marine environment than the people that spend so much time in it. I honestly love all of God's creatures. They're all fascinating and amazing. And although I'm far from perfect, I try to make sustainable choices when it comes to the food I put in my body. So peace and love, everybody, even to those keyboard warriors, because I'm sure their heart is in the right place. But please, just please, think about your own habits before you start hounding me for mine. Because I guarantee you, if you purchase seafood from the grocery store, you're responsible for way more octopus fatalities than I am. Indirectly, but still, think about those consequences. Peace and love.